From the Fathead Studio in Speedway, Indiana, this is The Skinny.
Maybe I need to start in the trash truck business.
Don't rule it out.
So my body holds about 11 units of blood, the average human body, guy my size, and I had 22 units put in because I had 2 full oil changes.
He's airborne, and then I'm above him.
Inverted.
All at the same time. Yeah, you're just like, wow, that's a wild picture.
Boom, and then it goes boom, and it comes back out.
I hang up on the guy. I go, who's this? This is Deion Sanders. I go, yeah, nice try. See you later.
Bounce and then this insane roll. That thing sent it.
No. It's okay, we come back. They just do it.
Man, am I still pretty? And he's like, you ain't pretty, but you're going to be all right.
If I was a few years older, you might be calling me Grandpappy. I think, all right.
Hi, I'm Tony Stewart.
I'm Scott Dixon.
I'm Mario Andretti.
I'm Christy Lee.
I'm Travis Pastrana.
Hey, I'm Antron Brown.
I'm Johnny Rutherford, and this is The Skinny.
Welcome back to The Skinny. We have another exciting show coming your way. I'm Ken Stout. Rico Elmore is responsible for this gorgeous place here, known as the Fatheads Eyewear Studios. Yes, that is Lone Star JR sitting right there on the set with us. We welcome Johnny Rutherford to the show. Of course, the man running the controls, as always, is the track dude, Mr. Michael Young, and our social media content boss. She is a boss. Miss Julie Natus is also in the house, also an NHRA top alcohol dragster champion as well. So everybody related with motorsports on this show. We love every bit about it. Let's talk about the man that is the subject here this week, though. An outstanding individual, Indianapolis Motor Speedway Hall of Famer, Motorsports Hall of Fame of America, National Sprint Car Hall of Fame, International Motorsports Hall of Fame. Mr. Johnny Rutherford, you got it done, my friend.
Well, I suppose, yes, I was in the right place at the right time.
And you took full advantage of it.
Yeah, I did.
We were talking about this before you came on the show, and obviously you were here for the Indianapolis 500. You always make that trek. And I said it would only be fitting if, maybe we'll start on this next segment, but only be fitting if we talk about your first win of 3 out here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It happened 50 years ago.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of saying it was 50 years ago, but it was.
And he said it slow too. He really drug it.
Yeah, I know. He really put it on me, but nonetheless, it was 50 years ago, and I can remember it, step by step, just like it happened yesterday. It was everything led up to the victory.
So I got a question that, in 74 when you won, where did you stay the night before? Where were you staying when you were in town?
For
the race, when you would come in the month of May, where would you stay?
Oh, we had...
you probably had one of these multi-million-dollar motor coaches they have now, right?
No, I'm afraid not. We lived... Most of us, Mario and myself and several other drivers, bought trailer homes.
Oh, did you?
And had them in trailer parks, and it was convenient, and we always... Mario and I were neighbors in one out on Lyndhurst, and we had a police escort to come in and pick us up and take us to the speedway, and so it was. Yes,
that's awesome.
It's good to be a driver in Indianapolis.
How much practice time did you guys have back then? What was the allotted amount of time? Was it a couple of weeks? Was it the entire month of May?
Yeah. More than they have now, for sure, because we came in the 1st of May and practiced right up until qualifying, which was a week and a half or 2 weeks away. And we, used every bit of that time to get prepared and make sure everything was right and it was all good. So, yes, it's changed a lot, but we've seen everything we deal with change a lot.
I know you're with McLaren for a number of years, but when we hear McLaren now, it's kind of a McLaren-supported effort. Was that the case with you, or was that just the choice of chassis that you decided to race that year?
It was a McLaren, period. Bruce McLaren started the team and raced and brought 2 cars here that were not really very successful. And they kept going. And of course, in 1970, he was testing his Can-Am car and crashed at Goodwood and was killed instantly there. And Tyler Alexander and Teddy Mayer and Patty McLaren decided to keep the company going. And so that was McLaren racing then. And they had built some cars to kind of fit the issue back then. And then it was the M16 was and will be probably considered the fastest flat bottom car in history here at the Speedway, because it was fast. We were able to go 200 miles an hour in 73 with it. And it was, fun to do.
He brought up a great point. We're going to touch on it when we come back. 1973 was a very difficult year out here at Indianapolis, but that man sat on the pole at a speed of 199 miles an hour. However, the next year that we want to focus on, his winning year in 1974, things changed dramatically. We'll touch on all that when we come back.
Just had to let it out, didn't you?
He wanted to bring it up because
So
AJ brought it up, right?
So that's the way it is. Okay.
The Skinny is brought to you by Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear, hardcore since '04. And American Coach. Innovation is our life force.
He won the 1974 Indianapolis 500. His name is Johnny Rutherford, better known or affectionately known as Lone Star JR. However, he was born in Kansas.
Just had to let it out, didn't you?
He wanted to bring it up because
So
AJ brought it up, right?
So that's the way it is. Okay. I did.
That's 2 in a row, huh?
Yeah. Coffeyville, Kansas, was where the Dalton gang met their end. They were trying to rob the bank in Coffeyville. So it's me and the Dalton gang.
It's pretty tough company.
Yeah, pretty tough company. So you mentioned 1973 and that McLaren where you qualified at near 200 miles per hour. And of course, that race was eventually run courtesy of rain on a Wednesday, but a couple of drivers were lost that year. A crew guy was lost that year. Salt Walthers went spinning and spread a bunch of fuel around. And what came out of the backside of that was a reduction in fuel, a reduction in wing size, a number of changes in the speedway itself. Pit end had become much wider, all in an effort to make things safer and safer. But because of the big wing changes and a lot of the changes, the speed actually came back down. I think your corner speeds were a tick higher, but straightaway speeds were a little bit lower. With all of that said, you had a very fast race car, as I recall, qualified second to AJ Foyt, but something happened, and I don't know the answer to this, because you had to start 25th back in row number 9.
Yes. That year, we had a new chief steward. Tom Benford was the new chief steward, and Harlan Fangler had retired. But Tom changed some of the rules as very, very, subtly. But we scuffed a piston in practice, and the guys went back to the shop. And in 58 minutes, they changed the engine and everything related to the oil system and got us back out. Well, the official in that particular area said, no, you've got to go to the end of the line because you weren't here when they called for everybody to get in line and in their position and go. So we had to go to the end of the line, and Al Unser Sr. and I had the same problem. He had one, and we both went up and down Benford like a window shade, you know. We were plenty hot. Anyway, we had to qualify the third day, which put me in the pole in the 9th row, you know, 25th starting spot.
And Al Unser ended up starting
Al
right
Unser
beside
was
you.
right beside me. And anyway, but we had practiced fast enough to set on the pole. AJ had done it. We didn't push the issue to try to make the speed, but we had the speed. So starting in 25th starting spot, when the green flag dropped, I started passing them as I came to them. And in 12 laps, I was told we were running third from 25th. That's how good the McLaren was that year. And unfortunately, we had a problem. The exhaust header, cast iron exhaust header on the Offenhauser cracked, and you lost pressure. And so I had to make a stop. And the guys changed out the header, and
oh wow,
and we kept going, but finished 9th, I think, anyway. And but 74 was next, and that was
yeah, 74. You had a big run, as I recall. You know, up there through the pack, but there was a number of cars that fell out early on. There was a lot of attrition at the beginning of that race for some reason. It was just kind of the way things sorted out. But you got up there and really started battling with AJ. You and AJ had a great battle in that race, and he was out front. And then there was one point where you did get past him. I think he stumbled in a pit stop. And now keep in mind, your pit stop strategies came into play in 74 because you were only allowed to carry 40 gallons of fuel from the previous 75 gallons. So now this turned the race into a 8 to 10 pit stop race. That had to be dramatically different.
Oh yes, just had to be right every time, you know. And it was I raced Foyt, and that's been my favorite race. We raced, you know, nose to tail, wheel to wheel, and I had, you know, I've thought now that I've had thoughts. Boy, if the fans don't like this, they don't like racing, you know.
You shouldn't be here, right?
Yeah, right. So it was good. And he, I don't remember what lap, but he had lost an oil line, and it started spraying oil out of back of his car, and literally covered me up because I tried to stay up close to him. So wonder we both didn't spin out, but still, I backed way away, and thank goodness I always carried a shop towel between my leg and the upholstery, and the, you know, right and tight. I had to get it out to clean the oil off of my visor so I could see. And AJ got the black flag, which put me in the lead, and he came back out and tried, and it's a wonder there weren't more cars spinning in the oil, because it was a lot.
Yeah, I don't think they were too happy with him when he came back out. Well, I think AJ pulled in, like you said, he was smoking, and you were directly behind him, which I also, it draws another question, because the cars with the wings, I mean, you had dirty air, but I was surprised at how close you could tuck in with your car and stay behind somebody in front of you and then dart out and make a pass. That car really handled well.
It did. Like I say, it was the best flat bottom car ever to go around the speedway. And but AJ got black flagged and had to come in, and I got the lead and went on to win the race. And when we pulled the car up into the victory lane, they had to about, I don't know, 30-inch square, black and white squares to make a checkerboard. And they pushed the car up on there and did all of the hoopla and the interviews and things like that. And when they moved the car back in oil, there was an outline of the wings and the front of the nose.
It's just dripping off of
all AJ's oil.
Yeah. she was a smart lady, could have been a doctor, you know. I know how to pick them good.
At 36 years of age, he grabbed his first win out at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, followed it up with 2 more eventually before his career was finished. Certainly knows his way around that wonderful racetrack out there. We've been talking about the 1974 effort, and you talked about grabbing the win out there. It was a long, vicious battle with you and AJ. Matter of fact, you had the lead, and I think AJ had leapfrogged you there on one of the restarts, but patient. Dealt with the leaking car in front of you. I often wondered about that myself, and then I think an important side note, because the way I read it or understood it, your wife was scoring you, but between you, who you had met here, I believe at the Speedway, but between you two, you kind of broke down some barriers there about women being involved in motorsports.
Yes, Betty was a registered nurse, and she was a smart lady, could have been a doctor, you know. I know how to pick them good, you know. Betty was
like all of us, you married up.
But anyway, it was, you know, she wanted to be involved. And like I say, she was a very smart lady. Started the program with the drivers' wives in there, and then at home in Texas, at Texas Motor Speedway, she started the children's charities program there, and so she was wanting to be involved, and she did timing, scoring, the record keeper, and did a magnificent job. You know, always knew where we were and what was going on.
So I'm kind of curious, back then she was obviously scoring for you, but did race control also have scores for you as well?
Oh, yeah. Yes, I think so. But we challenged sometimes.
Right. That's what I was wondering. So she was taking care of you. She was your backup in case something went wrong up there.
Yes. And she, in fact, there were several others, drivers, that did the same thing that I did in having somebody that is good at keeping records like that. And there were ladies all through the pits after that. So, yes, Betty's the one that started most everything.
So the whole deal with the fuel mileage and things like that, I mean, to help people understand that probably a little bit better. It's, you know, it's one of those things you say, well, how did you figure that out? Or, you know, what did you, I mean, I'm assuming it was the stick, right? Just like the use on the sprint cars, Silver Crown.
Yes. You knew how much fuel you had in the tank. You went out and ran and came back and measured it again, and you knew exactly what was going on, or you hoped you did.
Right.
But yeah, it's amazing that to see the teams over at the Speedway now, and the 40 or 50 teammates and the engineers, you know, it is incredible. But I remember back, we had six or seven guys on our crew at McLaren, and that was it. And
that was probably a big team then, though, right?
Oh, it was. Yes, we had a man for every position. You know, right rear tire, left rear tire, right front, left front, fuel, and what else? Anyway, that was it.
Very cool listening to how it was and how it's done today. There was also another very special moment at the end of the 1974 Indianapolis 500, and we'll bring that up when we come back.
Football-looking ring, you know.
Right.
But it's you know, I'd like to have one of the college football-looking rings.
That is the coveted ring that you receive if you are fortunate enough to win the Indianapolis 500. This man has 3 of them. The crew also receives one as well, or at least they do now. I don't know if that was the case back then, but what a special item to
Yes.
Do you wear it in other times other than here just at the Speedway?
Yeah, I wear it all the time.
I asked you which one that was. You said from 1976, your second win, because the other 2 are more worn. So you
Yeah, a
indicate to me
little
that you
worn,
wear 'em.
yes. But it's the ring. In fact, I ran into earlier this month to Castroneves, Elio, and he had his ring on like this. You know, the drivers from the era wanted to, they like this little lightweight ring compared to a bigger,
Big gaudy,
college
I agree.
football looking ring,
Right.
But it's I'd like to have one of the college football looking rings.
Well, the championship ring, like you talk about, I mean, it's a monster of a ring, and it's just not something you really wear.
Yeah.
But that is so low profile, but it means so much. And those that know. know.
Yes. That's worth a lot more than this one. This is the ring that I received for being the national driving champion in '80. And it's one of the bigger rings.
But it's still a great size. I mean, very wearable.
Yeah.
Did you ever run? What was the series called out at IRP? And we always talk about it. The Passmasters, was that what it was?
Oh, yeah.
Did you ever run those Jags?
Oh, yes.
I kind of remembered that you were. We always ask some of the guys, that would have been back in that era, and
Yes.
Dave Marcus, and everybody that ran that, and they would destroy those cars.
Oh, well, they did. The first night, McElreath and Ruby collided. To run those cars ran on an oval, and then do a little kink and go around. It was whatever. But the what was it? XJ220 Jaguar was the 20 cars that they had sold to people that wanted it with a 12-cylinder engine.
So this was a long front end Jag.
No, it was this is the rear engine.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Oh, yeah.
Rear engine car. Reason it was called 220 is because it would go 220 miles an hour. So anyway, they sold the cars with 12-cylinder engines, which people really wanted. They couldn't produce the 12-cylinder engine, so they said, we'll put a twin-turbo 6-cylinder in it, and the people said, forget it. They didn't want them. So they had those 220 Jags sitting up there. And
really? Now that's great. I never knew that.
Somebody put the idea together to have this Passmasters. Drivers over 50 that weren't racing anymore, but wanted to be involved in this event. Whew, boy, it was something.
Dick Trickle was in it, and the Ace McCullough, and these cars, if you wrecked them, it wasn't like you're going to the salvage yard or going to the Jag dealer to get a part. You were ordering parts from overseas. That's where all the parts were coming from. And they would destroy, big time hits.
Yard sale, huh?
Oh, it was incredible. It really was. It was to have a car like that and to race it under those circumstances was really laughable,
And every time somebody would junk one of them, it wasn't really a big deal.
Well, they were race car drivers.
It really wasn't a big deal. So
cars are expendable. We build another one. We go racing.
Yes.
It's kind of the train of thought.
Yeah.
It's the wrong guy to let drive the rental car.
Yeah, the rental.
Yeah.
Definitely the wrong guy to drive the rental car.
I want to go back, and we'll put a button on the 74 Indianapolis 500. But you had won the race. You're standing there with your wife, and you dedicated that race to your dad.
I did. My father had prostate cancer, and they knew nothing about it. They didn't know how to treat it or could do anything, surgically to relieve. And anyway, it metastasized to his bones, and so he was in bad shape. And he watched me win my first Indianapolis 500 on television, and then Mom said he went to bed and never got up after that.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
But anyway, it's time marches on, and he was my hero. My dad was an aviation engine mechanic. I've had guys that worked with him said he could listen to an engine with a problem and tell you what it was and where it was, and you could tear it down, and that's what it was and where it was. Wow. So, but anyway, he, like I said, he was my hero. We always had boats or race cars or airplanes somewhere during my life growing up. And of course, I became a pilot, and I don't know if you remember, but I had 2 P-51 Mustangs.
I did not know that.
And I've got a couple of 100 hours in a Mustang flying around the country, and I own 2 of them. And anyway, I've had a good life.
Pretty amazing. And he just might have changed the direction of the show a little bit. When we come back, we're going to find out a little bit more about this airplane thing.
Boy, I was hooked. You asked me what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a race car driver.
The Skinny is brought to you by American Coach. American Coach, innovation is our life force. And Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear, hardcore since '04.
Welcome back to the Skinny. This is the beautiful Fatheads Eyewear Studio. We're in Indianapolis, Indiana, just down the street from that world-famous Speedway, and we have a guy that had a lot of success there in the studio with us, Johnny Rutherford, who won that race 3 times, of course, a former champion as well, multi-time Hall of Famer in a number of different Hall of Fames. Great to have him in the studio with us, and we just learned a little something from him in the previous segment about his passion for flying. We did not know that. So Rico remembers the stories better than I do, but there's no shortage of Bobby Unser stories.
Bobby Unser without a pilot's license.
Without Jim Hurtubise and those guys, they were all flying planes, yes, with no
Roger Ward was the pilot. Gosh, there were several, that out of work coming out of World War II. They had been pilots, so, they had airplanes. And which one was it? Rex Mays had a P-38, and so, yes. And I had a P-51, 2 P-51 Mustangs I owned. They overlapped one another, but I had one done up. It was really a nice airplane, and flew it around quite a bit. I had a couple of hundred hours in P-51 Mustang.
Wow. Yeah, Robin Miller. Robin Miller was telling us he was flying with Hurtubise, and and they were flying line of sight by the roads. No, they
didn't have proper aviation.
No charts, nothing. So they're flying along, and he says, first of all, he said it was an old CB plane. I think I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
And he says he starts it up, and he said, it's blowing all kinds of this blue smoke out of it. And he's like, I guess if this is what kills me, it'll be with my hero. So, whatever. So they take off, and they're flying along, and all of a sudden he said that he just nosedives it. And he says he gets down, he says, what's that sign say? He said, Newcastle. All right. Pulls it back down.
Yeah. Go over the road signs.
So they're going, he said he landed in Cleveland, Ohio to pick up parts or something. And they weren't real interested in letting Jim go back out. You know, it was,
How influential was your father in your racing career?
I think he wanted me to when I showed made the point clear that I was going to drive race cars, and he's the one that took me in the late 40s, 40, probably 46 or 46, 47 to the Tulsa Fairgrounds to watch the midget cars run. And boy, I was hooked. You asked me what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a race car driver
wow.
8 years old. So that was it.
So what was your first race car? What did you get to race your very first time?
I was in a street rod or hot rod club. And one night at a meeting, one of the guys said, I'm going to have to leave early to help my brother put the engine in his dirt track car. Boy, that set me straight up in my chair, Wow, dirt track. Yes, they race every Friday night in Dallas, Texas at the Devil's Bowl Speedway.
Oh, no.
Devil's.
So I went over and went out the next day with him, and they let me drive that car. And a few years later, after thinking about it, I should have had a tetanus shot before I got in it. but anyway, they let me take a ride. Well, that launched me on looking, and I found a 32 Chevrolet Coupe that had been a race car, but not the same kind that ran at the Devil's Bowl. And I bought it and took it back to the clubhouse where the guys helped me build my first race car. And I had an engine. I had a 55 Chevrolet small block, which was 265 cubic inches. Well, that we were supposed to be sleeved down to 250, but I just left it 265, as a rookie kid. Yeah, close enough. But anyway, that was it. And I started race the season at the Devil's Bowl. And then after a season, I figured out that owning a race car really wasn't the thing to do because they cost a lot of money. I started racing when it was extremely dangerous to drive a race car and sex was safe.
Welcome back to the Skinny. Ken Stout, Rico Elmore, and that is Mr. Johnny Rutherford sitting right alongside. Great to have him inside of the studio with us. We've been talking about a number of different things as we bounced around in his career, including a little bit of flying as well and his passion for aviation. But I want to take him back to 1966. We'd be remiss if we didn't at least touch on this because it is proof of just how tough this guy is. He was racing in a sprint car. And, I was doing my homework for the 74 500, and I noticed that A.J. Foyt and Mario Andretti were running in a sprint car the Friday night before the 500. It wasn't uncommon for you guys to do that type of stuff. But as we go back, and you talking about starting your racing career there in the late 50s, early 60s, but by 1966, very accomplished, and you had a heck of a night going there in Ohio, and you walked out of there with a couple of hurt limbs.
Yes, I did. 1965, I was the USAC sprint car champion, so I won the championship in 65. 66, Earl Baltus, who ran Eldora, we were good friends and been there many times. Anyway, he dubbed that Johnny Rutherford Day at Eldora in early April of 66. And boy, was it. Eldora there were rocks and everything that came up. We always prepared for that. And anyway, I had a open face helmet with the flip shield on it, and it was getting a little mud, a little dirt on it, so I just flipped it back. Wish I hadn't, because we sailed into the first turn, and Mario was ahead of me, and bam, I got hit. I've still got the goggles at home in my trophy case, but they're shattered right here, and gained my undivided attention, and I hooked a rut and went out of the ballpark. And it's the picture. Tony Stewart told me that's the most famous picture that was ever made at Eldora, and I'm way up in the air. The car hit the guardrail and bounced and went way up in the air, and my arms are stretched out. I'm just, like this out of the car, and crashed and came down on the windshield and broke both arms and little fingers. Anyway, the next day, Betty got a newspaper, and it had that picture in it, and the sports writer captioned it, "Rutherford waves to the crowd and leaves the racetrack."
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, that's incredible. When you and Michael brought this up, and I think Michael has a question for you as well. But speaking of that, the safety from then to what you see today.
It's making progress. The cars are extremely dangerous. People ask me, when did you start racing? I started racing when it was extremely dangerous to drive a race car and sex was safe. So,
So that's kind of past each other.
Yeah.
A little bit going the other way now.
And part of the reason I asked you about your father, if he was instrumental in your career, is because when we had Mario on here, I think he did it during commercial break. We always get the best stuff during commercial break. But he said he and his twin brother Aldo, when they started their racing, they didn't say a word to their father, because all their father really recognized racing as is something that was so dangerous that so many people had died, and the last thing he was going to do was let his sons get involved. So they had to secretly kind of start their racing career. You got to think about your parents. I mean, you want to keep your kids safe,
Said the only way that he found out was Aldo was in the paper where he got hurt, or something happened where Aldo got hurt. And,
yeah. Amazing how it goes. We have Mr. Johnny Rutherford on the set with us. Just a little bit left here. The last thing you want to do is leave us now. We'll be right back.
Want to get the skinny on other guests and different types of motorsports? Check out our YouTube page and get the skinny. The Skinny is brought to you by Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear, hardcore since '04. American Coach. Innovation is our life force.
That's what you receive in 1980 if you're the PPG IndyCar World Series champion. That is a championship ring there for Mr. Johnny Rutherford, who's joined us here in the set. 27 wins and 23 poles, 314 starts is what I read anyways. That's a lot of racing.
Yes,
it really is.
Yes. But there are some guys that have a lot more, but still, it was my life, enjoyed every minute of it. And you get to the point, where people say, would you like to go back? Say, deep down, I probably would, but no, I've been there, done that.
And I should say those were IndyCar wins. You have a lot more than that if we start talking about sprint car stuff.
Sprint cars, midget.
Yeah, it'll
stock cars. Won the first race I ever ran in NASCAR at Daytona in 1963. Drove Smokey Unix stock car.
Did you really?
I won set a new track record and world record. I had the fastest hot rod in the garage, man.
Oh man.
Smokey was one heck of a guy. He was something.
do you ever see anyone stepping out of an Indy car and doing that, like Kyle Larson is doing, coming over? Would anybody ever run the double just the opposite way? An IndyCar driver run the Coke 600?
Well,
I mean, you guys used to do it all the. I mean, you guys ran Daytona. I mean, and there's nobody of this, recent era that runs any of that stuff like that.
Used to the United States Auto Club, USAC. If you joined USAC, you couldn't do any racing anywhere else until FIA, Federation of International Automobile Racing, came along and said, if you belong to FIA, you can go run where you want to, and
you said, sign me up.
Yep, I did, for sure. All of us signed, Foyt and everybody, we all jumped on that. But the safety in racing has gone. I think about the early days at here. Nobody would wear a seatbelt. They wanted to get thrown away from the car if it crashed, and so there was a driver just setting up behind the steering wheel, and then it went to the dirt cars, we called them, which was had the body, narrow chassis and everything, and you could see the driver from his waist up driving the car. And then it went to the roadsters, which the driver sat down inside the roadster, and you could see his shoulders and his arms and his head sticking up out of the car. And then it went to the rear engine cars, which the driver laid back, and all you could see was his helmet and maybe his hands on the wheel occasionally. But then it went to the cars today with the halo on the thing, and they're much better. But you've hidden the driver; you can't see him anymore. He's down inside the car, and that, I think, has taken some of the interest away of the fans, like to pick a driver and see what he's, how he's doing it.
How colorful the helmets were, and you knew drivers. But your 74 win, you had that big Lone Star on the front.
Mine was a Texas flag. You take my helmet, turn it up sideways, it was the red and the white and the blue with a star, Texas flag.
I've told this story a couple of times, but I want to thank you, JR. When first year working in IndyCar radio, I was on pit lane for my very first Indy 500. I was standing on the front of the grid, and every year my family would get together, and during Back Home Again in Indiana, we would all lock arms and sing Back Home Again. And I was getting a little sentimental, standing in the front of the grid, singing Back Home Again in Indiana by myself, getting ready to broadcast my first ever Indianapolis 500. And as I'm starting to well up with tears, an arm goes around my shoulder, and I hear a voice singing in my ear along with me, Back Home Again, and it was you. And I want to thank you for that, because you made that transition from family to becoming a small part of IndyCar radio and the IndyCar series, a smooth and a happy one.
Well, thank you very much. But it was wonderful you were singing that, but you were really off key.
I love his smooth, subtle way, and somewhere just before the end, I knew it was coming, man. He was lobbing one up right there.
There's the shot right there at the end.
Yeah, right back at you, Mike. That sounds good.
Hey, and only family would do that. Great way to wind the show up.
Yeah, perfect.
I got to tell you, I'm with Michael as well. We had a chance to speak of it just a moment, but I remember being a kid and being at home and probably only watched the Indianapolis 500. I don't know that, we watched a whole lot of IndyCar at the time. My dad raced karts and stuff. We were kind of involved in racing to a lower degree, but I remember the name Johnny Rutherford and Lone Star JR and those, when you heard those names, it was like, oh, yeah, that guy's fast. Man, that guy could win right there, and it was just the impression. We knew you guys were our heroes. When we were growing up, and couldn't be a better ambassador for the sport.
I think he modeled his signature after John Hancock.
Yes,
because it's got the best flow of any signature of anyone I've ever seen.
Are you an artist by chance? Did you ever?
I am.
Oh, I get it.
Well, there you go.
That's way good.
I've done some. I quit.
Ladies and gentlemen, Johnny Rutherford, thanks for watching here. It doesn't get any better than this.